Hey, and welcome back to Lessons in Product Management. For those of you who have already donated to the podcast or subscribed or left a review, I just want to say thank you. It means a lot. If you haven't donated, subscribed, or reviewed, it would absolutely make my day and my week if you would. It helps me do more for you. And speaking of doing more for you, today's episode is a bonus episode focused on what a life after product management could look like and sharing a path to the C-suite in a way that you might not have considered. Rich Sanchez came on the podcast a while back to share his advice on how to level up your PM career, but now Rich runs acquisitions in private equity and shares how not only do PM skills transfer very well, but how those same skills can streamline your path to CEO through a role in acquisitions. This is Lessons in Product Management. Let's get started. Hey, Rich, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, John.
Absolutely. I should say welcome back because you're second time guest. So, and
that's right. That's right. Yeah. When I saw that you had posted some of the metrics about your podcast, I saw that I was one of the top 10. So I was really honored that was possible. And I figured, since then, a lot has happened, a lot has changed in my trajectory, and I want to share that, hopefully help inspire other people.
Absolutely. Well, you're about to have 2 episodes in the top 10, so get ready.
Okay, good. Good.
Cool. So for the newer listeners who didn't get to hear your first episode, I know they're all going to go back and listen to it, but could you give a reintroduction of yourself and where you came from and what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. So I have been in product management for about 10 years, over 10 years, and I worked at Disney, I worked at Johnson&Johnson, some smaller startups and digital agencies. So I've had the ability to work in multiple settings, right? Large companies, fast-paced, smaller scale businesses. And the thing that I've realized when I made the transition out of product management is that a lot of the core skills that you develop as a product manager are things that can be transferred to other areas. And so the last podcast I talked about how you can think about product management and the things that you learn as a product manager in your personal life, but also in other types of industries, other types of spaces. So the space that I'm in right now is in private equity. So which means, we are essentially acquiring businesses, tech businesses that we believe are great fits for ourselves and our investors to go out and make better, and then eventually sell them at a higher value, higher multiplier, right? So I'll go into that a little bit more, but that's hopefully a good summary of the last podcast and then what we'll talk about today.
No, absolutely, and I'm super curious to hear more about what you're doing now and like how the PM skills transfer, because I've always heard that product management prepares you well to become like a tech CEO, but like, so you're running your own firm, and like, I don't know what kind of title you'd put on yourself, CEO or what, but it sounds like in either case, like those transferable skills have helped propel you into a position to be really successful with private equity. So let's dive into it, man. Just go, take it away.
Okay. Sounds good. So what I'll say is, fundamentally the core skills of a product manager, in my belief system, is that product managers are great communicators, right? They're able to shape a vision, where direction of a company, of a product, and they do it through different languages, right? They talk to designers, engineers, marketers. Every single type of person is essentially speaking a different language. And so product managers have to pick up multiple languages to be able to effectively operate or push this product forward. So that's one core skill set that I believe has helped me, because now going into private equity, I had to learn a new language. I had to learn the language of finance. And, as a product manager, we do have exposure to some things related to finance, right? I mean, we're looking at metrics, we're looking at, performance, revenue, right, of a product. But this other type of language of finance was completely different from what I was used to. It's the language of debt and the language of assets and, convertible notes and all the things that you hear about usually in venture capital, where a person, a founder is trying to get started, they're raising money, and how do you take people's money and share that equally with the founding team, right? So that was something I needed to learn. However, because I was able to learn these new languages in terms of marketing and design, my ability to quickly learn just, I mean, it helped a lot, right? So that is one aspect of just being able to understand, pick up new things. I think is very, very valuable, right? That product managers do really well, right? A second thing, just to quickly say, is when it comes to communication, I'm going to harp on this a little bit better. Communication fundamentally is how the world works, right? I mean, in order to get yourself from point A to point Z, you have to communicate with multiple people. And it's no different in terms of private equity, right? And I believe that my ability to pitch and share a vision in product development, product management to, let's say, a team or executives was very critical in me being able to raise $16 million for our private equity fund by simply applying that same concept and principle that, I mean, effectively what I'm demoing or what I'm communicating is essentially this idea, this fund, this private equity firm, which will be acquiring businesses and to the investors or the customers in this case, right? It's explaining to them what is their return going to look like, right? What is, being able to model it out in real time. I was actually using a lot of the product demoing skills that I've learned when meeting with, customers or executives. And that seemed to really get the investors excited because they could see real time what does this look like, as opposed to just talking it out, right? And sharing maybe just a pitch deck, right? Which there's something exciting when you can tangibly see something or, have it work in front of your eyes that attracts you to this opportunity. So I'll kind of stop there, but those were two of the ones related to communication.
That's really cool because I know, like in the product space, like you could use prototypes, like click-through prototypes or video demos or something to like show that tangible experience. But in the private equity world, working with investors, those models kind of are the prototype of private equity. It seems like.
Exactly. Being able to, because every investor has their own different risk tolerance. They all have, some investors, their risk level is much higher, right? That's why people jump into venture capital knowing that, hey, out of 10 bets, right, one of them is going to be success. And I'm okay with that because I know that one is going to deliver 100x my return, right? Others are, I don't like the idea that that there's a potential downside at all. I want upside, as much upside, but I'm okay getting a smaller return, right? Or at least a return that is higher than, let's say, the S&P, which is what everyone usually tries to beat, right? The S&P 500. And so being able to understand your investor and adjust the variables or adjust on the fly is what really, I think, has helped me and my partners be able to raise the money that we've raised so far in just actually roughly 4 months that we got started.
That's cool. Now, I want to go back to communication and learning new languages in just a second, but I think that's really interesting because in private equity, venture capital, like the risk game, right, of investment, like I've always heard that too, where you may invest 10 times, but you're expecting one of those to hit. So there's going to be 9 failures. And I think that's a really interesting point for product managers because we're going to ship features, we're going to run experiments, and we'll probably have a similar ratio of success to failure. And so I think that to your point, like that another transferable skill is like being okay with experimentation, being okay with risk, obviously educated risk, but knowing that, like being comfortable with failure and knowing that you have to like swing the bat if you want to hit a home run.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not going to lie, there are some investors that, their idea of failure isn't maybe the same as what a product manager would go through. I mean, to them, failure, because you're dealing now with, they're other people's money, right? And they're
Right.
putting the investment in your hands to do due diligence, to think for them, so that way, there is less failure. However, one of the things that I've done is I like to incubate these potential theses or these ideas that we have earlier with smaller bets, right? Smaller money, I should say. And then once you incubate, that's why you'll hear a lot of times with your incubator funds or people incubating an idea, maybe building up a little bit of a track record or building up some case study. So that way, when they've done that, right, in a way that's your A/B testing, you're developing your validation. And once you've gotten that, now you can go to the investors and you can say, hey, we've run this for a good amount of time. Look at the returns, and we can do this on a larger scale. When they see that, they then will be eager to jump on. And so I like to think of it very similar to product management, product development. I remember we just do this a lot at Disney, where before we launch a feature, right, we actually would test the feature out on a smaller subset of people. We would throttle our traffic, so that way we can measure the performance. And if the feature did well, then we shipped it to more people. If it didn't, we didn't ship it. We actually, analyzed it a little bit better. And then we figured out why it wasn't working. And then we did another iteration, right? So being able to think in that way has been helpful for me to get started, because I have actually been incubating these fun thesis ideas of how to leverage a business and acquiring a business and adjusting some levers of that business to improve it. So that way, when we do improve it, the investors will get a higher return.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And definitely see how that translates into like validation testing, prototyping, like MVPs, like to prove out the model before you make a bigger investment. So it makes a lot of sense. Going back to the learning new languages part of communication though, right? So I know anytime you start a new job or transitioning roles or companies or industries, there's going to be a learning curve just to like get acclimated to the organization. But especially if you're transitioning industries like you and I both did recently, there's also like a new language to learn that comes with a new domain. But you've been through that many times, going from to different types of companies, now being in private equity. So is there an approach that you would share with the listeners of like how you tackle that challenge of learning a new language?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of diving in at a faster pace than most people when it comes to this type of stuff, by taking on either going on a learning expedition, if you will. That's what I call it, right? Where for a good maybe month or so, I am diving deep into that domain, whether it's through taking courses or reading or watching videos, right? Like anything that I can get my hands on. I call it almost like if you think about it, almost like in the Matrix, where you're in the construct and you're basically going to try to download what you're about to learn, and you try to do it as fast as possible, as concentrated as possible. Then you're more likely to learn it. But I also think there's a level of application that has to happen. So for that month, I actually, I start to say the words myself. I start to teach other people. And the better that I become at being able to explain something completely new to someone else, that for me is the confirmation that I've gotten it, right? Like the moment that I can explain it to my mom or to someone else, or, that this complex thing, this new thing that I just learned, that's when I learn, I know I've got it, right? And I think that's honestly been the key to my success, is being able to learn fast by diving in, finding the right material, consuming it, but then also doing something with it, as opposed to just, letting it go in one ear out the other. I use my hands. I create things. I almost like in a way, almost like I'm creating a course or creating something for someone else. So that way, it's double double the value, right? I have a record of it. I can, physically touch it. I can understand this material, but I can also share that with someone else if they also want to learn it, right? And down in the future, because everyone has to onboard, right? Regardless, if let's say you just joined this company and then you're now trying to onboard someone new, now that can be something you pass on to someone else, and then they can learn it as well. So I'm always trying to accelerate the learning process as fast as possible, because I think data acquisition, especially in the curious stage, is much higher and better for you when you're trying to learn, as opposed to trying to go slow, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm going through a similar process right now. And it's funny because like you're saying this, and it's like I'm actively doing some of the same things around documentation and trying to share it. And like this role in this business unit inside of the companies is new in general. So I think even the broader product team of devs and UX are trying to figure out like, how does this fit into the big picture? And so being able to like synthesize that, document it, bounce it back off of leadership to see if I'm on the right track, and then teaching it back to the broader team. It's definitely helpful to take that approach for sure. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So anything else that sticks out to you in terms of like transferable skills where you become really good at this core skill set of product management? The listeners want to go out and do something on their own, and they know that these are skills that they can rely on to successfully launch their own thing.
Yeah. So talked about communication. Another key skill that I would call a product manager is exceptional at is just the ability to lead, right? And be able to understand a team effort versus an individual effort, right? So many times I look back to my experience as a product manager, and you're effectively the leader, right? People are looking to you to move things forward, right? You're a lot of people say you're the conductor, right? Of an orchestra. You're the movie producer for a film, right? And being able to lead is one of those skills that you develop. You develop with practice. You develop with just doing it over and over. And I will say that me jumping into private equity, it's just like a natural progression into leadership, continuing that leadership journey with a new set of key team members, right? Instead of maybe having developers or designers that I'm leading, now I'm effectively ensuring I'm leading, our financing partners, our legal team, our accounting team, right? All the people that we need to acquire a business. And let me actually take a step back, because I do want to maybe intrigue some of your listeners who are product managers and potentially thinking, could acquisitions or private equity even be something that I'm eventually interested in the future? Because I'll be honest, when I first kind of thought about the idea of private equity, I was like, that is so far out. I didn't go to I didn't, spend time on Wall Street. I didn't get an MBA, like all this stuff, right? But what I did realize is once I dove into it, again, I kind of made the connection. It's not too different or similar or different than private and product management. So let me explain. So private equity is a little bit different from venture capital, and venture capital is focused on early stage startups, and they do the same thing. They raise a bunch of money. They find great founders with great ideas. Some of them may not have revenue yet, but they have a great team. They have a great idea and everything like that. And they're essentially backing those founders, so that way they have enough runway to see that through. And if they do well, then that venture capital firm or venture capitalist or angel will see some of those returns, right? Private equity is a little bit different. Their business model is looking after existing businesses that have a good track record under their belt already, whether that's 3 years or more. Every private equity firm has a different thesis, but usually it's established growth companies that, either they already have a team, they have consistent revenue, or that company has been around. And the private equity firm, what they'll do is they'll effectively acquire that business. So that way they build up their own portfolio of businesses that they can then improve or help improve by bringing in, maybe a new CEO or new individual or new team. And, at the end of that, with the hope of improving that business or optimizing it or exiting it to someone else, whether it's an IPO or something, maybe an acquisition of another kind, they then get the upside, right? So the risk there is a little bit lower, but you can actually own effectively a multi-million dollar business on day one of acquisition, right? As opposed to, let's say you get $1 million funding amount and you go out and you start a company, and then there's a higher chance that it fails. That $1 million just is gone, right? You probably learned a lot, but to the investors, to the people that you took that $1 million from, they effectively lost, right? So that's why I like private equity. And I actually, what I've realized is that product managers are great at potentially even being these operators for these businesses, right? So if you're, let's say, a product manager right now, and you've been in product management for a long time, you know how to manage teams and people and communicate, and you've always wanted to take that jump into starting your own company, but you always hear that there's a lot of potential risk and there's failure and this and that, and it's all very true. There's a lot of risk involved with that. I would actually maybe shift your thinking about saying, can I be the the owner, the CEO of an existing company that just needs a new direction, that needs a new perspective? And you then become that person that, in a way, people say product managers are like the mini CEO of a company, or, of the product. You effectively could be the CEO, right, of a new or of an existing company, and essentially manage those people, or bring on the developers, the marketers, the designers to retune an existing company. And that's really where my focus is on right now. Is I'm actually, I started off with being the CEO of an existing company that we acquired, and what I've realized is that I want to find other product managers to be the operators, right? To be the people that have the expertise, the communication, leadership skills, and kind of have a pool of talent that I can choose from to say, hey, you've always wanted to start a company. You've always wanted this financial freedom that's, becoming an entrepreneur offers you, but maybe you don't like the risk. Your risk tolerance is a little bit lower than let's say, others who want to start a business. Then maybe you can consider being an operator of one of our portfolio companies, right? Because again, the core skill sets are there, and then you can essentially lead that company to higher growth, like you're probably already doing at the company that you're working for right now, right? So that's kind of what I would say my shameless plug is, if I may, is really, for all your listeners out there, it's not only am I trying to educate you on this new world, because I think there's going to be a huge shift of acquisition entrepreneurs that are starting to rise. I'm seeing it now more and more because of my exposure to it. But there's going to be a lot of people who are going to look at acquisitions as a new means of being an entrepreneur, because of this idea that there are a lot of baby boomers who are, retiring, and there's this great wealth transfer that's going to happen, where they're going to need new leaders to step in and either operate those businesses or take them to the next level. And I think there's no better time than now for product managers who have experience, especially in tech, who can be the new CEOs of these companies, if they're willing to, and they have a true passion for that space.
I completely agree. I even jokingly said that I feel like politicians should all have to go through product management training, and government officials, because they get elected to solve problems, or at least that's what they campaign on, right? But what skill set is better to solve hard problems than product managers? So yeah, whether it's government officiating or becoming a private equity fund individual, or someone who's becoming CEO of these companies through private equity acquisition. I completely agree. Like product managers are very well suited to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree, and it's one of the things that I've seen as well is I'm very proud that I can say that I have gone through being a product manager and I've had the years, because it is, again, I think a very valuable profession that can go anywhere.
So before we go, I did want to touch on leadership a little bit more, because you mentioned how leadership is one of those core skills that transfer. So if someone were talking to you and said, Rich, I want to be a better leader, but like, what does that look like? What would your advice be to them?
I have always believed that leadership is the ability to act the way that you would want your team to act. Meaning, I'll use it in a reference to fitness, right? I personally, I love fitness, health and wellness. And if I were ever to try to get someone to go to the gym or get fitter, I wouldn't just tell them, hey, go to the gym, here's the workout, follow this procedure, this is what I'm doing. I would actually go with them, right? If I truly want them to get in shape, or they, there's a sense of purpose to help them, then I would go to the classes with them. I would show them that I'm doing the work, that I also know this area, this industry, and offer to help them that way, as opposed to, again, just telling. And so I believe leadership is the act of being able to, at any moment, being able to act alongside your team, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a team effort. And I think people respect other leaders who understand what they're going through, but can also do the work themselves, right? As opposed to maybe what people always refer to as like a manager, which is just telling you what to do. And sometimes you feel like that person could never do that role. I mean, effectively, yes, a lot of managers will hire smarter people so that they can do the role. But I love to work with leaders who know that industry, that know that space, and can sometimes work alongside me when it comes to figuring out a problem, right? So my definition of leadership is really being able to act alongside your team, because I think it just motivates them and it shows them that you're in it with them. It's not a one-sided team. It's all for one. Yeah, it's all for one.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? And like something kind of adjacent to fitness is sports. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a big LSU football fan, and they just hired some new coaches, and one just came from the league. One is a linebacker coach that wears cleats to practice and actually does the drills with the kids. And you can tell the difference between kind of the former regime, who is kind of the point and yell type of people, more of the manager type, versus the leader who got in the dirt with them and was showing them how to do it because they had that confidence. And even though they may not be playing the game today, they know how to do it because they've done it, and they're able to show it, even if it's not at that elite speed level they used to be able to perform themselves. So I think whether it's fitness or sports or work, like that whole leadership definition translates really well.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Cool, man. So again, but before we go, if someone is interested in getting into the private equity space, wants to connect with you, how would they do that?
So one of the best ways to connect with me right now would be through LinkedIn. You can find me, just do a quick search for Rich Sanchez. You could also look for Product Fit, which I effectively started as my first company, but I'm using it as a channel, as a way to, like I said, train, mentor, improve product managers, so that way they can either decide to go on to become, heads of their own companies, or higher executive levels at their companies, or effectively be operators on the portfolio companies that we have, right? So you can find me there. And you can also check out aproductfit.com. That's where we will be kind of putting out more content related to acquisitions and private equity, and just this whole new world that exists when it comes to internet and tech businesses, and how to acquire them. Because, like I said, private equity is a game of understanding the business that you're going after, and knowing that you have an edge, or knowing that you have something that you can improve them on. So, yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to link your LinkedIn and the Product Fit website into the show notes. So if you're listening, make sure you go into the show notes, click on that, and you'll have direct access to Rich and to the Product Fit website if you're interested in getting mentored or learning more about what's coming in the private equity world and acquisitions. So Rich, thanks so much for jumping on again. I know it was a pleasure to reconnect, and thanks for sharing.
Likewise. Thanks, John.
Thanks for joining me today on Lessons in Product Management. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. The link to our YouTube channel, Path to Product, is in the show notes, and you'll also see the link to donate if you want to help support the podcast financially. For as little as 99 cents a month, you can help me bring you more content on the podcast, the YouTube channel, and future product management books that are in the works. More details to come. And as always, if you're looking to land your first PM role, join us at pathtoproduct.io, where you'll get the hands-on experience you need to land your first PM job. You'll find the link to Path to Product in the show notes, as well as the other links. And thank you again. I'll see you next time on Lessons in Product Management.